Are you speaking up here?
First.
Okay.
I'm not using.
I'm not sure that that's working.
Yeah, but.
Would everybody please stand as our cantor, Yoni Stoker, does the anthems?
You always do, you do Israel first.
Okay. Do Hail Mary immediately afterward, or is that
No,
later? That's later.
that's later.
Okay, sure.
Kol od balevav pnima nefesh Yehudi homiya ulfatei mizrach kadima ayin letzion Sophia Od lo avda tikvatenu Hatikva bat shnot alpayim Liotam chavshi be'artzenu Eretz Zion Yerushalayim Liotam chavshi be'artzenu Eretz Zion Yerushalayim. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Please be seated.
Is this mic working? No, it's not. Okay. Is this mic working? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Okay. You can hear me in the back? It's a wonderful problem that we need more seating. Good afternoon. My name is Alan Michelson, and on behalf of my co-chair, Roz Melzer, and the committee, we thank you for being with us today. Since we were last together, our Jewish lives have been turned upside down. Events evocative of pogroms and worse have played out in real time, events we never imagined we would witness. Later in the program, Toby Smulowitz, will be reading in Yiddish the second generation's legacy acceptance, followed by Gail Bindleglass's English translation. I encourage you to listen closely to these readings, as they should resonate now more than ever. As the year has been different, we are presenting a different program while retaining all the crucial elements of our traditional observance. We're employing the power of music composed during the Shoah to tie us l'dor vador from generation to generation. These pieces will convey the range of emotions many of us are currently feeling. I particularly want to welcome Bergen County Commissioner Tracy Zuhr, a second generation, for being with us today. We chose to be at this synagogue as a way to highlight the merging of Fair Lawn's two conservative synagogues, the Fair Lawn Jewish Center and Temple Beth Shalom, creating Congregation B'nai Shalom Fair Lawn Jewish Center. We thank them for hosting, and we welcome Rabbi David Bachman.
Well, Alan said everything I was going to say. No, actually, my name is David Bachman. I'm one of the rabbis here at Congregation B'nai Shalom / Fair Lawn Jewish Center. And we've been together, the two congregations, since January. We have two rabbis, two minyanim, and while we have many different ideas and practices, I must say that every Shabbat, when I walk in the sanctuary here, it feels wonderful to have people welcome me with a warm smile, a handshake, and a good Shabbos. The fact that each legacy synagogue now has the joint shul together have such people of goodwill, to me portends the possibility of great things happening here into the future. And not just here in Fair Lawn, but to the Jewish community in northern New Jersey as well. So being a rabbi, I want to open with a rabbinic text from the Mishnah in Tractate Ta'anit. This is a tractate that talks about what do you do in times of emergency. Ta'anit means fasting. And one of the things that happened was when the community was in trouble, whether it was natural trouble, a drought, a flood, an earthquake, insect infestation, cicadas, animals rampaging, or whether it was by human means, invading armies, killers on the loose. There were various things to do, starting with personal fasts and prayers, but escalating to communal fasts, bringing the Torah scroll out from the synagogue or from where it was stored into the town square, blowing the shofar, and more things. What were these actions supposed to accomplish? Some of the commentators say that they're supposed to alert God, as our ancestors did in Egypt, that we need God to act on our behalf and save our city. Others, however, see these actions as having their greatest impact not on God, but on us. We blow the shofar not as we normally would in order to waken us from our lives of slumber, to alert us to the dire nature of this emergency situation. Perhaps we might change our sleepwalking habits and become particularly aware that all is not normal and the world is not as it should be. And so I'd like to ask everybody to rise as I blow the shofar at the wrong time of year. Now you might think that since October 7th, nobody needs to be reminded that the world is off kilter, that the situation is dire, that we must do everything we can each and every day to remind ourselves that souls have been murdered, raped, burnt to ashes and chemicals. But of course, how many of us need to remind ourselves and others each and every day that human lives hang in the balance, that hundreds of people were kidnapped and are now treated as hostages in tunnels, we presume, beneath an area the size of Manhattan. Whatever else we do, we must not forget to demand that they be returned home. We must demand that not only of their captors and tormentors, but we must also demand that of our own leaders, who are responsible for fighting to bring them back, as should be their number one priority. Finally, you might ask why, in the wake of October 7th, and in the continuing fallout, the war that horrific day unleashed in Israel, in Gaza, and even here across college campuses, and in random interactions with our neighbors. Why is there a need anymore for Yom HaShoah? I think that the need to remember what happened in living memory is more relevant now than ever. As Albert Camus, who lived through the Algerian War, wrote, "Man stands face to face with the irrational. He feels within him a longing for happiness and for reason. The absurd is born of the confrontation between this human need and the unreasonable silence of the world. This must not be forgotten. This must be clung to, because the whole consequence of a life can depend on it. The irrational, the human nostalgia, and the absurd that is born of their encounter. These are the three characters in the drama that must necessarily end with all the logic of which an existence is capable. So now we must wake up. Now we must remember and learn from every tragedy, and especially the Holocaust. Now it is time to devote our lives to trying to work out that which is most important and pressing for our times, and to be the people we need to be, and to demand of the world what we need to demand of it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Bachman. We now will have a few words from the incoming president of Federation.
Thank you. I'm Daniel Hers, and I'm deeply grateful for the invitation to be here representing Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey. Federation has been sponsoring this event for decades, and it cannot be overstated the importance of the program, particularly in today's climate where anti-Semitism, as we all know, looms larger than ever. Thank you, Alan and Roz, for once again saying Hineni as chairs of this program. We all owe you a debt of gratitude. I also want to thank the committee for your work is important, your work is appreciated, and your work is necessary. For me, this event holds profound significance. My father, who's 92, escaped Nazi Germany in September of 1938. Many others in my family did not make it out. His wife was a hidden child. My family's history, shaped by the horrors of Nazi Germany, serves as a stark reminder of the importance of combating anti-Semitism. As a parent, my daughter's 17. The chaos and rising tide of hatred on college campuses fills me with genuine concern and fear. I want to say, as I'm standing here looking out, I can't help but think about 5 weeks ago being in Israel and being with the father of a hostage, then being on the border with Gaza with a young woman who hid for 8 hours with her husband and 2 young children. I stand here thinking about the troops who we had a great barbecue with, and we stood together, we ate together, and we cried together. And then to go to the Nova Festival and see the horror that existed. Our work as one community is more important now than ever before. Federation actively combats anti-Semitism each and every day. We advocate with elected officials, we collaborate with law enforcement, and we partner with our synagogues, schools, and agencies on security training and building fortification. The work has always been important, but today it is urgent and critical. At the same time, we continue to care for the less fortunate and build Jewish identity and Jewish continuity. Since October 7th, our federation has raised over $3 million for Israel, sending them funding for trauma relief, relocating Israelis, and medical supplies and equipment, among other things. Our support for Israel is unwavering. Today's gathering serves as a poignant reminder that the phrase "never again" is not just a slogan. It is a call to action for all of us. We must draw from our history to confront the challenges of the present and future. Our community's strength lies in our unity, transcending our diverse beliefs, practices, and backgrounds to combat our common enemy, anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. Once again, thank you for your dedication and commitment. Together, let us ensure that the voices of hatred never drown out the chorus of hope and resilience. Thank you.
I'm proud to introduce the Honorable Gail Rottenstreich, the Mayor of Fair Lawn and a member of our congregation, B'nai Shalom Fair Lawn Jewish Center, as our community speaker this afternoon. Gail?
I want to thank the Jewish Federation for sponsoring this Yom HaShoah Remembrance and the co-chairs of this event, Roz Meltzer and Alan Michelson and their committee. And I also want to thank Nir Garfinkel for reaching out to me to ask me to speak today. As Roz pronounced perfectly, my name is Gail Rottenstreich, and I am the mayor of Fair Lawn. I'm also a longtime member of this synagogue and the proud former president of its sisterhood. So I have spoken many times from this bima, but I don't think I've ever been more anguished about speaking here than I am today. I'm the daughter-in-law of a Holocaust survivor living in Israel, the wife of an Israeli child of Holocaust survivors, my husband Zahavi, who's here today, and the mother of third-generation survivors. And I am heartbroken. As the first Yom HaShoah remembrance since the October 7th Hamas massacre, this is a sacred, tragic moment. October 7th was a pogrom, the worst pogrom since the end of the Holocaust. At our town council meeting following October 7th, I read words from this Haggadah, my family Haggadah, that I grew up with and that always spoke to me. Not alone in Egypt, but in many other lands, we have grown under the burden of affliction and suffered as victims of malice, ignorance, and fanaticism, with cruel mobs ready to rush upon us and destroy us. This Haggadah is over 100 years old, predating but predicting the Holocaust. In every generation, and in many other lands, and now in our Jewish homeland, Israel, and now here too, in the United States, we are seeing daily depictions of cruel mobs who seem ready to rush upon us. And we have an unknown number of hostages still held captive in Gaza. And yet, we are here today, together. We are still here. We stand together, and we stand strong. In an article written last year by the author Dara Horn, she asked the question, is Holocaust education making anti-Semitism worse? Her conclusion was that while we must demand that the world remember our history, and that generations of persecution is literally written into our DNA, and that is who we are, that isn't all we are. As this program here demonstrates today, we are so much more than the sum of our persecution. We are artists and musicians, physicists and scientists, mathematicians, computer engineers, doctors, and everything that a great people can aspire to be. As Rabbi Hillel said, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? We know we must be for ourselves. We must stand together, and we must not let those who would divide us for political gain come between us. But because we are Jews, we also know we cannot only be for ourselves. We are and will continue to be empathic, generous, and expansive. And we will continue to draw from the strength of the generations who came before us and continue to invent and to create and to be a light unto the world. Thank you.
I'm going to first ask if we have any children in our audience who would like to march behind the Torahs. Would they please go to the back of the room right now? We would love to have you in our procession. And I'm going to ask everyone to stand as our Torahs come around, and we will have an accompanist. Our cellist will be playing, and I Elad. Please be seated. We will now have the stories of our survivor.
My name is Rebecca Kochman, and I will be reading the story of my grandmother. I was born Devorah L. in the Warsaw Ghetto on March 21st, 1941. My parents, Tosha and Mordechai, were tailors. My mother was born in Warsaw, and my father came from Lodz. They met when they were both swimmers in the Maccabi Games. They married before the ghetto was established in October 1940 and lived with my mother's parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles when it was sealed off in November. I was born 5 months later. My parents left the ghetto daily to sew German uniforms and returned each evening. As life in the ghetto deteriorated, my grandparents encouraged my parents and me to escape. My grandmother gave my mother her jewelry to help bribe our way to the Russian-occupied side of Poland. The jewelry was carefully hidden in my mother's piled-up hairdo in case she was searched. One day, my parents went out of the ghetto to work with me, an infant, and did not come back. The trip was difficult, encountering bandits and opportunistic Polish people. We bribed someone to take us across the Bug River. We finally arrived in Baborsk, Belarus, where we stayed with distant relatives. My parents thought the worst was behind them. They were able to work as tailors, and my blonde-haired, blue-eyed father was able to go to the market to buy food. In June, Germany broke its non-aggression pact with Russia. We fled to the east on trains packed with others, just ahead of the advancing German army. At one stop, my father got off the train to get water for me. Suddenly, the train departed with no warning, and my father was left behind. The trains had no schedules. My parents had no idea where or if we would reconnect. When the next train came heading east, my father jumped on it. 2 days and 200 miles later, miraculously, my father found my mother and me at a train station. We continued traveling by train for the next 4 months. Thousands of miles later, we arrived in Kazakhstan and settled in the outskirts of the then capital, Almaty. For the duration of the war, my parents had a harsh life growing and selling potatoes to be made into sugar. When the war ended in May 1945, I was 4 years old. Back on the trains, we made our way to Poland to reconnect with our family. In Warsaw, we learned my mother's parents, 3 sisters, and cousins had all been murdered in concentration camps. My father went to Lodz to see his family. His parents and 10 brothers and sisters had all been murdered. For the next 2 years, we lived in a DP camp in the American sector. My parents were tailoring again, I went to school, and life was relatively good. My parents heard that the Haganah was organizing a group of survivors to travel to Palestine against the British edict which prohibited Jewish immigration. My parents considered going to Australia, but decided it was better to go to Palestine and live among Jews. We were among 4,500 survivors smuggled into Marseille, France. In 1947, we boarded an old wooden ship renamed Exodus 1947. Close to Palestine, the ship was intercepted by a British destroyer which shot at us and rammed the ship. There were casualties, and the Exodus began to take on water. Despite heroic resistance by the survivors, we were all transferred to a British ship and taken back to a DP camp in Heidenheim, Germany. 6 months later, the Haganah arranged for us to go to Palestine, masquerading as tourists. We went to Haifa and lived with my mother's aunt who had left Europe before the war. My mother did tailoring and my father worked for the municipality. We were 3 families in 2.5 rooms. 3 of the women were pregnant, including my mother. 2 weeks after the establishment of the State of Israel, my sister Adzila was born. I went to first grade knowing no Hebrew, only Polish and Yiddish. Eventually, we moved into a home that was vacated by Arabs who fled to Lebanon when the war started after the state was established. My sister, Israela, called Ella, was born in 1951. Later, while I was in nursing school, I met Michael Kochman at a Navy Yom HaShoah party. We married in 1961. I became a registered nurse, and Michael went to college. Over the next decade, we would have 3 children, Iris, Gilad, and Boaz. They would each give us 2 grandchildren. Michael's career in high-tech medical devices would take us back and forth between Israel and North Jersey until we now live in Mahwah. I light this candle in memory of my parents and the aunts, uncles, and cousins on both sides of my family whom I was never able to know.
My family name is Berg. I was born on April 26, 1937, in Cologne, Germany, and was not given a first name. The German government did not want Jews to have Aryan names. There were only 4 or 5 approved options. Several months later, my parents, Carl and Rose, selected Egon for me, their only child. We were an Orthodox family living in Leichenich, a suburb of Cologne. My father had served in the German army during World War I and then owned a clothing store with his uncle. He had 2 brothers. They were not an educated family. We were the poorest of the Bergs. My mother's family was highly educated. My mother was a professionally trained nurse. She had 2 stepsisters and 2 stepbrothers. One brother went to Uruguay in 1938 and another to Kenya. In 1933, one of my mother's cousins heard Hitler speak in a beer hall. He and his family quickly left Germany and settled in Birmingham, England. He started business and stayed in contact with my mother. His brother was a successful lawyer in Germany. Arguing on behalf of his client during a court appearance, the judge said, "Sit down, you lying Jew." This cousin also quickly left Germany. He went to England and years later to Kenya. In 1938, my parents were tipped off by a German business friend to go to a large city like Cologne. Jews were being singled out. Jewish men would be arrested, homes and businesses destroyed. My parents saw synagogues burned. Those days became known as Kristallnacht. They packed a small bag and hired a car and driver to take us and my father's cousins to Cologne to stay with relatives. When the driver returned to Leichenich, he was outed for helping Jews and was killed. Cologne is near the border of Holland. From there, my father, his brothers, and male cousins hid in the forest. Several of them were captured crossing the river and were sent to a concentration camp in Holland. Since they had left Leichenich quickly, my mother and the other women went back to retrieve some of their belongings. They were stopped by the police and questioned, "Where are the men?" They honestly answered that they did not know. The police left them alone. My parents gave what money they had to the Uruguayan embassy to purchase visas. Unfortunately, a clerk stole the money. No visas and no money. My mother became responsible for planning an escape for us and 15 Berg family members. Through June 1939, she frequently went to the post office and made phone calls to her cousins in England and in Kenya. Her cousin in Kenya was able to obtain visas for all the Berg relatives, including those in Holland who were released from the camp. In June, the Bergs, without my father and his eldest brother, sailed from Genoa, Italy to Mombasa. With them was a 250-year-old Torah they were smuggling out of Germany. Luckily, in August 1939, my father left to join us in Kenya just before the Gestapo required exit permits and Germany declared war on Poland. Shortly after arriving in Kenya, the two Berg brothers and two cousins bought farmland and settled outside of Nairobi in an area named the Highlands, which is about 7,000 feet above sea level. There were two homes on the property. We raised chickens, ducks, other farm animals, and raised and sold cattle. We grew a dry flower plant called pyrethrum, used to produce DDT. There were guards who protected us at night from lions and other predators. The British were strict in overseeing Jewish immigrants. We had to regularly report in. Jewish men were quarantined and required to manage Kenyan farms whose owners were off fighting the Germans and Italians in North Africa. Again, the women in our family were in charge. Jews who settled in Kenya before the war were not from Germany. They did not welcome us. They were afraid the new immigrants would take their jobs. I was a happy child. I spent time in the huts of the farm workers. I loved the corn they grilled on the cob. I would come home with nits and lice in my hair. My parents were not pleased. When I was 6 years old, I attended a government boys' boarding school. My parents visited me once a week and brought sweets that were monitored and doled out. I attended that school until I was 10. My mother was hired as a nurse for the U.S. ambassador to Kenya. My father was not well and did light farm work. In 1947, we sold the farm. My father was in his 50s and in poor health. Other relatives were also suffering from the high elevation. There was concerns about the children's education. In June, all the Bergs sailed on a commercial ship from Mombasa to South Africa, and then on a ship around Cape Horn through the Indian Ocean to Boston. We moved to New York, where we lived with relatives in Washington Heights. My mother learned English quickly and did private nursing. English did not come easily to my father. He worked as an elevator operator. 2 years later, we moved with my father's brother's family to Norman, New Jersey, adjacent to Vineland, where there were many German immigrants. We bought a chicken farm. After graduating high school, I studied chemistry at Rutgers University and then worked in the U.S. Patent Office. I earned a law degree attending night school at George Washington University. I moved to New York and became a patent lawyer at the firm Darby & Darby. I married and moved to New Jersey. We had 2 children, Jamie and Carl, and now 4 grandchildren. I became the head of the worldwide patent and trademark operations at American Home Products, which became Wyeth Industries. In 1976, I married Marge Berg. We live in Hohokus. My mother's mother died in Theresienstadt. My mother's stepsister and her 4 children died in Auschwitz. My mother always felt guilty that she could not help them flee Germany. The smuggled Torah came to the U.S. with my father. It is in a young Israel synagogue in Stamford, Connecticut. I light this candle in memory of parents Rose and Carl Berg.
I'm pleased to welcome Jane Press, president of the Holocaust Music Lost and Found nonprofit. She was inspired by stories about music that were written by prisoners in concentration camps during the Shoah. She was moved and wanted to take action. She is spearheading this nonprofit in the United States, and she will introduce today's program.
Thank you, Roz. Actually, maybe. I think that's better, right? As Roz said, I'm Janie Press, and I'm founder and president of Holocaust Music Lost and Found. It is a privilege for us to be a part of this beautiful and moving Yom HaShoah Holocaust Remembrance Program. I want to thank the Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey and the committee for inviting us to be a part. Holocaust Music Lost and Found was born out of our need to bring to life the incredible music that was written during the Holocaust in the ghettos and in the camps, and from the composers who fled Nazi Germany. And we can hear and experience the sounds that soared through the hearts and souls of the composers whose creativity could not be extinguished. Our mission is to bring people together and teach the lessons of this history, not only reaching out to communities like we're at today, but also reaching out to new and diverse communities where they don't know this history and they certainly don't know about this music. It is so meaningful that we honor the legacy of the composers and the musicians who bravely created music during the Holocaust, as we honor Devorah Kochman and Egon Berg, the survivors who are with us today. In these challenging times, I believe that what Holocaust Music Lost and Found does sends an important message of resilience and hope and the continuing need to fight anti-Semitism and hate. To find out more about Holocaust Music Lost and Found and to keep this music alive, you can go to our website, www.hmlf.org, or you can reach out to us if you want to get involved or become supporters. It is my pleasure to introduce our musical advisor, Elad Kabilyo, who will present the music that you will all be astounded by. Elad.
Hello, everybody. I have to say that, especially as an Israeli, it's really warming to see all of you here today, as it's more important than ever. Maybe I'll just use this. Better? Okay. Usually everybody complains that Israelis are too loud, so. This journey that I embarked on with Janie and the Holocaust Music Lost and Found has influenced me tremendously. And especially now, almost 7 months since October 7th, it feels important more than ever because it feels like the music that we're going to play for you is exactly about what we're going through right now. But music can give so much hope, and music can bring back your humanity. And lots of people think that music from the Holocaust is sad music. Quite the contrary. Music can really save lives and can lift your spirit in the hardest of times. And that's exactly the first piece that we have for you. This is not a piece that you'd expect in a concert like that. It's a tango piece that was written in Buchenwald, in the concentration camp, by Josef Kropinski. It's a beautiful, fun piece of music. It's a dance. Again, think about it. Hearing a tango, it brings you back to be a human being. So this piece was written in 1944, and what Kropinski is doing here is truly like ignoring everything around him and giving the people around him the feeling that they are themselves. And I can't even imagine like how many lives this piece saved by giving hope, by giving spirit. So this is Tempo di Tango. Not exactly what you expect when you think about music from the Holocaust, right? But that's the biggest reminder. And again, right now, I feel it again. We need to keep our spirit. We need to remember that we have our music and we have our heritage, and to embrace those things. And music can truly save lives. The next piece that we have for you is by a female composer. In general, when you talk about classical music, female composers is not something that we have that often, unfortunately. And here we have a composer by the name of Yosima Feldshah. I would really love for all of you here to remember this name, Yosima Feldshah. Yosima Feldshah unfortunately perished at the age of 14 from tuberculosis. But she wrote 20 pieces for piano. Just think about it. Our Leo Mozart, Yosima Feldshah, wrote 20 pieces for piano. She was a gifted pianist. She performed with the Warsaw Ghetto Symphony Orchestra, Mozart Piano Concerto. There's still a poster. It's in the Holocaust Museum. It's incredible. She could have been the next big thing. But we are so lucky to have her music, because with her music, her memory lasts. With her music, you cannot deny the Holocaust. With the music, you can also enjoy her life and remember her. So Yavor here on the piano is going to delight us with two works by Yosima. Now, she wrote all this music until she was 14, so she was quite young. So what you're going to experience is maybe childish music, but childish composer. Like, she writes way better than anyone in this room. Or maybe there's a composer here, I apologize. But this music is really, really, really beautiful. And it's a little bit like seeing like an early Picasso work. Like, you get a glimpse into the artist, what this artist was when he was young. And the music is so beautiful. And we chose two pieces. The first one is a mazurka. Mazurka is a typical miniature for piano. It's as if Yosima is doing exactly what she's supposed to do, to write classical music for piano, a traditional piece. The second piece is called Shabbatiyad. And you can guess from that, she's infusing Shabbat into the music, which is also very beautiful for a 14-year-old. Her dad was a Zionist, her mom was a pianist and a musicologist. It was a typical Jewish home, you know, of music, of thought. And she brings also Shabbat into her music. Yavor, can you play for us that Shabbat theme? What a clever girl. That's all I have to say. So you're going to hear now two sides of Yosima Feltro. The classical music, and then the classical music infused with our heritage with Shabbat music. remember her name. You can also look online. There are more and more recordings on YouTube of her music. Still no professional recordings. That's part of the things that with the Holocaust Music Lost and Found we want to do, is to share with, not just with our Jewish community, this amazing music and these amazing stories. The next composer that we have for you is Hans Krasa. Hans Krasa is a composer that belongs to a group of 4 composers that were one of the most important in the period that perished during the Holocaust. Those 4 composers, Hans Krasa, Pavel Haas, Gideon Klein, and Viktor Ullmann, all of them were at Theresienstadt camp. So the Nazis put together Theresienstadt camp, today it's where Czechia is, the Czech Republic. They put together this camp in order to further their propaganda, invite the Red Cross to see this beautiful camp where artists, Jewish artists, create art and they have a wonderful life under the Nazis. And it worked. There are videos, actually, of the Red Cross visiting there, seeing operas and performances. There were the Ghetto Swingers. It's a famous jazz group that played in that camp. Poets. There were painters. Of course, in 1944, they were all sent to Auschwitz. And all of these composers died. Now, Hans Krasa was such a terrific composer. His career was just about to shoot up. And in Theresienstadt, he was asked to write music. Now, it's a little bit funny to think about it because the Nazis wanted him to write music for their propaganda. What they didn't understand that at the same time, they're empowering him. They're empowering the community. Because the moment that you put together a concert, you take your cello, you play brand new music, a premiere, you feel like yourself. You're not that person in a camp. Your life is back, and you have something to fight for and to live another day. The next piece that we have for you is from his opera, a children's opera, by the name of Brunibarb. Brunibarb is a children's opera with a very simple tale about Brunibarb. He's very, very bad person. He happens to have a mustache, by the way. Another great way for the people in Theresienstadt to rebel. And this opera was performed in Theresienstadt 50 times. And there's also a video of that performance. Nowadays, this opera is being performed, especially in schools, because it is meant for children. And about 20 years ago, it was presented off-Broadway with a translation by Tony Kushner. So we are very excited to share with you 2 songs from Brunibarb. What I would love for you to notice in the music, first of all, that we have Hans Krasa. He's in Theresienstadt, but he is a composer, and he studied music, and he's talented. He's in his mid-30s, and the music is kicking. It's not this typical simple music. It's not what you heard from Yosima Felcher. He's a true artist. He learned, he went to school. So you have the modernism that you hear. Again, he was able to do that, which is so great, to be himself. At the same time, we have the text that is very childish and very pure. So we're going to have an opening, very exciting, very modern, and then Yochai Greenfeld is going to join us, and the first song is going to be about morning time. Everything that has to do with morning time, and about our kids that are trying to buy milk, something that every child in Theresienstadt camp was able to relate to. So we have that song about milk, and after that a song about morning time with a crow and a rooster, very childish, very colorful with different animals. And this mix of music that is a little bit pushing it modern with a text that is very pure and simple gives you something that's truly special. And again, I advise you go online after this and you'll hear the entire orchestra playing it. It's incredible. And let's welcome Yochai Greenfeld.
Everyone calls me Little Joe. I lost my father long ago. I lead my sister, dear Annette. Our sick mother is home in bed. The doctor came in, the day was cold. He wore big glasses, he was old. He sat down next to Mother's bed. With his cold hand he touched her head. After a while, in lowered voice, he said to us, "Don't make such noise. Milk and sweet nuts, your mother's needs. Go buy some for her, go indeed. Milk and sweet nuts, our mother's needs. Go buy some for her, go indeed." Milk and sweet nuts, our mother's needs. How will we buy some? How indeed? Rooster crows on the wall say, "Can you hear his call? Morning stars fading, sunshine is raining. Get up, you all." Away in college, instead of knowledge, students seek fun and play in their beds. They must stay on the next day. Be it too hot or cool, you have to go to school. To be intelligent, you can't be negligent. That is the rule. Rooster crows on the wall say, "Can you hear his call? Morning stars fading, sunshine is raining. Get up, you all."
So I mentioned 4 great composers that were in Theresienstadt. All of them they were the next big thing, truly. And they wrote incredible music, truly incredible music, music that is performed until this very day by great orchestras, not performed enough, but performed. And how lucky we are that the music survived. Again, their stories survived and the music survived. But the greatest composer of the 4 was Victor Ullmann. Victor Ullmann is one of the finest composers. His music combines this modernism, but also some American flair. We performed last June his piano concerto that has influences from Rhapsody in Blue. And his music is exciting, it's beautiful, challenging at times, and it has everything in there. If not the Holocaust, Victor Ullmann, to me at least, I'm sure he would get to America and he would have like this great career. So Victor Ullmann writes operas. He was in Vienna. He collaborated with the great Arnold Schoenberg. He was in the high society, living the life, and then he finds himself in Theresienstadt. And what does he do in Theresienstadt? He writes incredible music. Now, I don't know if I was in his shoes, like how I would be able to do that. Like to be creative while you're worried about your day-to-day with your family and about your next day. But that's what he did. To the extent that one of his best works in Theresienstadt is a cycle of 4 songs with Chinese poetry. Can you imagine doing Chinese poetry at the camps? That's the incredible thing about these stories and the incredible music. Victor Ullmann wrote so many pieces in Theresienstadt, and he wrote 3 piano sonatas. He wrote 7 in total. The last 3 were in Theresienstadt. And Yavor is going to play for you now from his last sonata, from the 7th sonata, the first movement. It's a challenging piece. It's challenging for the pianist. It's performed quite a lot. This is a piece of music that was recorded a lot, and you can find it very, very easily. But what you're going to hear specifically in this piece of music, at least to me, it sounds like music of a silent film. It sounds like this incidental music. The mood keeps changing, and there are two different themes. Can we hear the first theme? Like, to me, it sounds like a morning tune. Like, I get up and everything is great, and I'm like, who would have thought, in what circumstances he wrote this? But the music is exciting. It's vivid. There's so much in there. And let's hear the second theme. Almost a picture from a dream. And this music, it's unbelievable that he was able to do this, and that now, all these years after, we can share this with you and remember Victor Ullmann. So this is the first movement from Victor Ullmann, Sonata number 7, which he dedicated to his children that were there in Theresienstadt with him. The next composer is Kurt Weill. I think many of you might know Kurt Weill. So Kurt Weill was born in Germany, and he fled in 1933, first to Paris, and then he got here to America. He wrote back in Germany the Three-Penny Opera, Mac the Knife, that I think many people know. He was a superstar already back in Germany, but things were getting more and more complicated, and the Nazis just wouldn't let him work, so he fled, and he got here to America. The song that we have for you is from the Broadway musical Knickerbocker Holiday. Everybody knows Knickerbocker Holiday, right? It's one of your favorites, right? It's from 1938. It's important to remember also the time. 5 years after he fled, uprooted his life, starting over. I'm not sure even if he wanted to do Broadway music. He wanted to write opera. He wrote wonderful classical works, but in America he had to make a living also. And he wrote lots of great music. Knickerbocker Holiday actually brought for us September Song, one of his most famous songs. But also the song It Never Was You, which is one of the signature songs of Judy Garland. Now, It Never Was You in this show is a song about love, not being able to find love. Like I tried here, I tried there, it's not working out. But if you look carefully at the text, you realize that it might have a different story. It's about the people that you lost, the people that you left behind, that you're trying to find them in a new land, but they are not there. The text is so, so precious, and the music is truly incredible, and I'm so excited that Yochai is going to sing for you It Never Was You by Kurt Weill.
I've been searching through rains and the wind that follows after for one certain face and an unforgotten laughter. I've been following signs. I've been searching through the land for a certain pair of eyes and a certain pair of hands. Yes, I tried a kiss here, and I tried a kiss there. For when you're out in company, the boys and girls will pair. But it never was you. It never was anywhere you. An occasional sunset reminded me, or a flower hanging high on a tulip tree, or one red star hung low in the west, or a heartbreak call from a meadowlark's nest made me think for a moment. Maybe it's true. I found him in the star, in the cold, in the blue. But it never was you. It never was anywhere you.
I'm in love with that song. Listen to Judy Garland singing it, completely different. The next song that we have for you is by the poet Binem Heller. He's a Polish poet that survived the Holocaust. I won't go now into his entire story because each survivor's story is kind of incredible. How he traveled and fled and ran, it's incredible. But after the Holocaust, he writes the next song, My Schwester Chaya. It's a song about his sister Chaya, and she has beautiful braids, and she took such good care of his siblings, and as he writes in the song, was burnt by a German in Treblinka. It's a beautiful song, it's so lovely, but then there's the knife that goes in, and that's the reminder. So this is My Schwester Chaya.
Mein Schwester Chaya mit die grüne Augen, mein Schwester Chaya mit die schwarze Zepp. Die Schwester Chaya, was hat mich der Zeugen aufs Motsche Gass in Häus mit krumme Trepp. Die Mame is weg von Stub beginnen, wenn Eufel Himmel hat Schäum gehält. Sie is weg in Kräumereien verdienen, das biedne drobne Gräuschen dicke Geld. Und Chaya is geblieben mit die Brüder, und sie hat sei gekormet und gehiet. Und sie fleckt singen sei die schöne Lieder, vor Nacht, wenn kleine Kinder wären mit. Mein Schwester Chaya mit die grünen Augen, mein Schwester Chaya mit die lange Haar. Die Schwester Chaya, was hat mich der Zeugen, ist noch nicht alt gewesen, kein Zendlingjahr. Sie hat geräumt, gekocht der Land das Essen, sie hat gezwungen uns die kleine Käpp. Nur spielen sich mit uns hat sie vergessen, die Schwester Chaya mit die schwarze Zepp. Mein Schwester Chaya mit die Augen grüne, a Deutsch hat in Treblinka ist verbrennt. Und ich bin in der jüdischen Medina. Der same letzter Voss hat sie gekannt. Vor ihr schreib ich auf Jiddisch meine Lieder, in Tag die schreckliche und unser Zeit. Bei Gott allein ist sie Abbas Yechide, in Himmel sitzt sie bei sein rechter Seite. Vor ihr schreib ich auf Jiddisch meine Lieder, in Tag die schreckliche von unserer Zeit. Bei Gott allein ist sie Abbas Yechide, in Himmel sitzt sie bei sein rechter Seite.
We've reached our last piece in our concert portion of this event. And the next piece is Kaddish by Israeli composer Tzvi Avni. Tzvi Avni was born in Germany in 1927, and he was lucky enough with his family to flee to Palestine. And his career he's one of the most important composers in Israel. You need to understand that what is Israeli music in 1930? There's no Israeli music. There's Ashkenazi music, there's Sephardic music, there's Yemenite music, but there's no Israeli music. And he's one of the founding composers of Israeli music. And what Tzvi Avni does when he writes his music, he writes a Kaddish, because that's our heritage. And now more than ever, this Kaddish has such a strong meaning. He dedicated this Kaddish to his family that perished in the Holocaust, but I would like to dedicate this Kaddish for all of the souls that died on October 7th and after that.
Thank you, Janie, for bringing this wonderful music presentation to us. Thank you.
Wir nehmen auf sich den Käuf von die Doseke Zevua. Wir seien der erste, zweite und dritte Dor, geboren durch die Finsternis. Doch diese Geheimnis von unseren Eltern, seine Wörter und sein Schweigen, seien mir verbunden mit jener vertickten jüdischen Welt, wenn man's Upklang beherrscht unser Bewusstsein. Wir widmen die Doseke Schwur zu euch, unsere Eltern, welche haben gelitten und seinen Leben geblieben. Zu unseren Bubes, Seides, welche seien umgebracht geworden in den Flammen. Zu unseren vernichtigten Brüdern und Schwestern, mehr von 1 Million jüdische Kinder, welche seien so brutal ausgehärtet geworden. Zu allen 6 Millionen, wenn man's unbeugsamer, geistiger und physischer Widerstand, a viele in den Todlagern und Ghettos, ist ein Beispiel von dem Strebung zum Leben von unserem Volk. Wir schwören zu gedenken. Wir wollen lernen, unsere Kinder zu vereiwigen jenem ausgewurzelten jüdischen Geist, welcher ist aber nicht zerstört geworden. Wir wollen erzählen der Welt, wie tief der Mensch kann sich sinken und zu welcher Heuch kennt sich der Heuben, a viele in Gehennem. Wir wollen bekämpfen die Antisemitismus in alle Formen von Rassenhass. Doch unser widmen sich zu der Freiheit von allen Völkern. Wir bestätigen unser Käuf zu Medinat Israel. Wir wollen aufhüten das jüdische Leben in unser Land. Wir schwören unsere Treibschaft zu der Einigkeit von jüdischem Volk. Wir seien eure Kinder, wir seien du.
The introduction to the acceptance. On behalf of the second generation of Holocaust survivors, we, the children and grandchildren of the survivors, have willingly accepted a responsibility inherent to our unique and collective identity. That responsibility has manifested itself into a legacy that was accepted at the Western Wall in Jerusalem on June 18, 1981. At the World Gathering of Holocaust Survivors in Israel. We accept the obligation of this legacy. We are the first generation born after the darkness. Through our parents' memories, words, and silence, we are linked to that annihilated Jewish existence whose echoes permeate our consciousness. We dedicate this pledge to you, our parents, who suffered and survived, to our grandparents who perished in the flames, to our vanished brothers and sisters, and more than 1 million children so brutally murdered, to all 6 million whose unyielding spiritual and physical resistance, even in the camps and ghettos, exemplifies our people's commitment to life. We pledge to remember. We shall teach our children to preserve forever that uprooted Jewish spirit which could not be destroyed. We shall tell the world of the depths to which humanity can sink and the heights which were attained even in hell itself. We shall fight anti-Semitism and all forms of racial hatred by our dedication to freedom throughout the world. We affirm our commitment to the State of Israel and to the furtherance of Jewish life in our homeland. We pledge ourselves to the oneness of the Jewish people. We are your children. We are here.
We ask all the second, third, fourth generation who would like to come up and join us as we sing the hymn of the partisans. And the Torahs will lead, so would everyone please stand as the Torahs march. Okay. Oh. If there are any more, please do come up and join us. We are going to be led this year by the Torahs. Please come up to the front, onto the bima. Please come up, everyone. There's room. Just be careful of the candles. Come on, move over. You have a voice? You have a voice. Get over here. You don't know it. You know it. All right. Gail. Gail.
I know, that's the problem. Yes, that's the problem. Why'd you stop?
I'll wait.
Sog nit keimel, as du gehst dem letzten Weg. Kotsch Himmel bleiene, verstellen bloie Tag. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Sveta poikten unser Trott, wir seinen da. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Sveta poikten unser Trott, wir seinen da. Von grünem Palmenland bis weiten Land von Schnee. Von grünem Minsten Wein in unser Weh. Und wo gefallen sie, so spritzt von unser Blut. Spratzen wird dort unser Gwore, unser Mut. Und wo gefallen sie, so spritzt von unser Blut. Spratzen wird dort unser Gwore, unser Mut. Es wird die Morgensonn begilden uns dem Heind. Unser Nächten, wenn verschwinden mitten Pein. Nur Räub versamen wird die Sonn und der Kajor. Wie a Parol soll gehen das Lied von Dor zu Dor. Nur Räub versamen wird die Sonn und der Kajor. Wie a Parol soll gehen das Lied von Dor zu Dor. Das Lied geschrieben ist mit Blut und nicht mit Blei. Es ist nicht kein Liedl von a Vogel läuft der frei. Das hat a Volk zwischen Wallen dicke Wind. Das Lied gesungen mit Naganes in die Hand. Das hat a Volk zwischen Wallen dicke Wind. Das Lied gesungen mit Naganes in die Hand. To sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst dem letzten Weg. Kotsch Himmel bleiene verstelle bloie Tag. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Sveta poikt und unser Trott, wir seinen da. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Sveta poikt und unser Trott, wir seinen da.
We can take this to class tomorrow.
I would. I didn't get one.
Oh, I'll get you.
Thank you.
Gail, there's a ramp. You see where the rabbi's standing? There's a ramp. Go slide.
Take your time.
Yeah, wait till they all.
Yeah, sure. Give them a minute. Ready? You give it to me. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Ashchina Bimalot Kedoshim Utorim Kizohar Harakia Masirim L'nishmot kol acheinu b'nei Yisrael shenitbechu b'shoah nashim v'taf shenachneku v'shenisrefu v'shenehergu shemasru et nafsham al kiddush Hashem Began Eden tehei menuchatam. Ana bal harachamim hastireim beseter kinafecha leolamim. וצרור בצרור החיים את שמותיהם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם, ונאמר אמן.
Please join me in the Kaddish. Yiskadav v'yiskadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrah chirosei, v'yamlich malchusei, v'chaye echon uv'yom echon, v'chaye dechol beis Yisrael, ba'agola v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehi shemei rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei amaya. Yisbarach v'yishtabach v'yispar v'yisramam v'yisnaseh Yisadar v'yisaleh v'yisalom Shemei dekudusha richu Li'elam min kol birchasa v'shirasa Tushbechasa v'nechemasa Da'amin ran bi'alma v'yimru amen Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya Chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael V'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen.
Thank you, everyone, for coming this year. And with God's help, we'll see you again next year. Drive carefully and put your phones back on.